Hello, everybody. Welcome to Censored. I'm Lee Camp, joined by Eleanor Goldfield. Today, we will be talking about the amazing vote by our Congress to endorse genocide. Multiple votes, really. A vote in the Senate, a vote in the House, 97-0 in the Senate, 400 and blah, blah, blah to 10 in the House to endorse this genocide and really get behind it 100% and be excited for it. We're going to be talking about that and so many more stories. So please click subscribe and share and throw in comments because comments always help the algorithms. And we're going to start off with this vote. Did this vote shock you at all?
I'm not aware of the vote. That's how much I don't give a shit what Congress is doing.
Fair point. Let me see if we can find. Oh, I've lost it.
No, it's the fruit.
No, it's not. That's the Hawley thing. All right. So here's the House vote. God damn.
I'm used to it.
I'm trying.
Mm-hmm.
What? They changed their layout or something. The House voted 412 to 10. I think this is the most they've ever agreed on anything ever to have solidarity.
I think
with
they
Israel.
oftentimes vote this way when it has to do with giving the Pentagon money. So whenever it's genocide or genocide adjacent, they always agree.
Yeah, it is definitely close to this much collaboration when it comes to killing and death. But 410 to 12 or whatever it was.
I think it's 412 to 10. But who gives a shit? It's the overwhelming majority of people who run this country are very pro-genocide. That's really all you need to know about this story. But Lee will dig into it more because I'm a bitter ass when it comes to Congress. So
thank you, Alex, for the donation. Here's the thing. If I didn't know that Alex was a big supporter and is here a lot, I would assume he was insulting us, but he says my two favorite anti-Semites, and I assume he's kidding. Go ahead.
Well, just for people who are like, wait, what? The joke is that people who are anti-Zionists also often get conflated with being anti-Semites. Lee and I are both Jewish.
Right.
Not that you can't be an anti-Semite if you're Jewish, just like black people can be racist against black people and women can hate women. But
ask Clarence Thomas.
He's a woman?
He hates women.
Okay.
No, he's racist.
But the truth of the matter is that anti-Zionism is in fact pro-Jewish and Zionism is anti-Semitic. And we've talked about that before. I've also written an article about it from Mint Press News. There's lots about it. Just check out places like Jewish Currents, which we will be looking at later as well. But there are plenty of places. You can also reach out to me online. I've been talking to a lot of people about that the past few weeks. But that's the joke. So in case people are reading the comments and they're like, holy fuck, this is awkward. It's not.
But one of the most amazing aspects of this that you covered on our last live stream together is the fact that there are more Christian Zionists in America than Jews in the world.
Yeah.
So the support of Israel is far more from non-Jews than Jews.
Yes.
Just numbers wise.
But anyway, back to Congress.
I do want to highlight that there were a couple of holdouts. One of the, as the New York Times says, one of the resolution's opponents, Rashida Tlaib, Democrat of Michigan, defended her vote as a protest against what she sees as unfairness. She said, I voted against this resolution because it's deeply incomplete and biased. This resolution rightly mourns the thousands of Israeli civilians killed and wounded in the horrific attacks, but explicitly does not mourn the thousands of Palestinian civilians, including over 2,000 children, now 3,000 children, killed and wounded in the collective punishment of Palestine. But it was not just the Senate that was doing, the House that was doing that. Also the Senate. The Senate passed a resolution affirming their support for Israel, its right to self-defense, which is a complete bullshit term, and condemning Hamas's attacks on civilians, which, what are we seeing now but endless attacks on civilians by Israel. The final vote count was 97-0. in its initial copy of the resolution, listed 99 of the 100 senators as co-sponsors, with only Senator Rand Paul not signing on. However, after publication, Paul's office told CNN that he did co-sponsor it. So I think it's also 100 co-sponsors.
Can we just scroll down for 1 second? The resolution, as reported by CNN, also, quote, condemns Iran's support for global terrorism. There you have it, folks. You can't pass up a good opportunity to continue to destabilize the region. And of course, this is very, I mean, it's very dangerous at any point, but it's super dangerous right now when the stability of the region is literally hanging on a fucking thread. And now, in a completely useless, by the way, resolution, because the U.S. already supports Israel. So passing a resolution saying that you support Israel is basically like, it would be like if we had a resolution that said we like the flag to have stars and stripes. It's like, it's a completely pointless resolution. It's already a thing. You don't need to do a thing that already says the thing that is already a thing.
Well, and if you send billions in bombs, I think that shows you're pretty friendly with them.
So it's a completely pointless resolution. But in this pointless resolution, you got to make sure that you put something in there that, again, redundantly, reaffirms the U.S. empire's drive for world war with now Iran, because we've shifted now, like we're talking less and less about Ukraine because that proxy war just didn't work out. But now it's like, well, we weren't able before to topple Iran, so we're gonna re-up those efforts while we're also talking about Israel and how wonderful that apartheid regime is. It's like, this is just a remarkable amount of homicidal stupidity.
And if you think about that vote, basically 100-0, there was no one voted against it. Think of any senator. If you can name any senator, Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, Rand Paul, doesn't matter. If you can name a senator, they are on Team Genocide. They have just voted and endorsed a genocide that has already, just in its first 3 weeks, killed 3,000 children. And they're just getting going. They're just getting started. It is a true horror show that these people are signing on to, and they're all sociopaths, which is probably a little too complimentary, honestly. But there's one more resolution that went through that it perhaps is somehow even worse.
This is worse because it actually does something, whereas the other resolution didn't. I mean, it didn't do anything because we already were doing the thing. Again, I feel like this is like it's like a who's on first bit, you know? It's like,
yeah, you don't need to raise your hand for genocide when you are on Team Genocide.
Right. When you're already doing the genocide, you don't need to.
But Josh Hawley, just an amazing senator in all regards. The Senate has passed the Hawley.
Sarcasm.
What's that?
What you just said.
Indeed. The Senate passes the Hawley resolution condemning anti-Semitism on college campuses. Now, here's the thing. If this was actually condemning anti-Semitism on college campuses, then all right, sure. Seems kind of silly, seems unnecessary, but I'm for it. I am for condemning anti-Semitism. But that's not what it's doing. It's calling every Palestinian march, pro-Palestinian march, everything saying ceasefire, everyone marching down the street on a college campus with a sign that says hashtag ceasefire is now anti-Semitic, according to them, which of course is bullshit. Today, the U.S. Senate passed by voice vote, and this is Josh Hawley's website, so this is his view of things, but anyway. By voice vote, U.S. Senator Josh Hawley's resolution condemning Hamas and the anti-Semitic student groups on college campuses that have celebrated the October 7th terrorist attack against Israel. Because basically, if you march where the sign says Free Palestine, that means you're celebrating killing of civilians. The passage of the resolution came after Democrats blocked the measure. Yeah, like 2 Democrats blocked the measure 1 week ago. So he's trying. What's hilarious is also he's trying to paint himself as, I got past the Democrats. Ha ha. There's like 2 Democrats that even bothered to try and fight you on this. Most of them are fine with this complete shit show of a reversal of words. I mean, basically, if you support genocide, you are in Congress. But if you're in those protests, in those marches, holding up signs that say "Free Palestine," holding up signs that say "End the apartheid state," you want to stop the genocide. And now this bill, this resolution, says you are endorsing genocide.
So, does this? I know it says condemning anti-Semitism, but does it basically say that student groups on campuses across the U.S. cannot? I mean, I guess it only
he
passed
urged,
the Senate, right? It hasn't passed.
I don't. I'm too dumb to know how resolutions work, so they're slightly different, and so I'm not certain. But
okay.
he urged the Department of Justice. This is where you get into actual actions.
Right.
Department of Justice to investigate pro-Palestinian student groups' potential ties to Hamas. Because you know, every college student that's at a Free Palestine march.
Which, can I just say, what's not funny, but I mean morbidly so. As a refugee friend of mine said, you have to laugh because there's so much to cry about. What's really funny about this is that there are plenty of Jewish organizations such as Jewish Voice for Peace, Jewish Currents, and then of course organizations that employ a lot of Jews like Electronic Intifada, Mint Press News, that are anti-Israel and anti-Zionist. And so the idea here is that, so ironically, but so poetically American, you are going to be condemning Jews for being anti-Zionist under the guise of not
being anti-Semitic,
right?
Yeah.
And yes, in the comments here, aren't Palestinians Semitic as well? They are indeed, which is why it's even more more correct to say that Zionism is anti-Semitic.
But of course, when people use that term, they're basically saying anti-Jewish. But as you've just said, that's ridiculous.
And I oftentimes will say anti-Jewish because I do. I do understand.
You do understand words
that anti-Semitic is a blanket term that includes Palestinians, and most people who are trying to use that term to shut down support of Palestine don't know that. And then when you throw it back in their face, their brains twitch a little bit, and sometimes they drool, and then sometimes they lash out. So you're going to want to back up a little bit. Anyway, I was just curious if that had any actual bearing. I know that he was asking the Department of Homeland Security to do something that they're probably already doing, going after people who are against Israel.
He also called on the Department of Homeland Security to address, quote, terror-linked aliens at the southern border, urged DHS to fire an employee with anti-Semitic social media posts in support of Hamas, which likely means they were not anti-Semitic posts.
He took time out of his day to highlight one employee.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing, because they're so.
What is your sad life like?
So he and Fox News and many of these people, I mean, many Democrats as well, but they do something very similar where they want you to believe there's a whole world of something going on, and they find one little case and they go, see. It's like when they were trying to prove that people were multiple voting for the Democrats. And there's tons of election fraud that goes on, but it's not multiple voting. And they couldn't find anyone who had multi-voted that they could actually point at and say, look, there it is, until they found an immigrant, undocumented immigrant who had voted, which is illegal, but the immigrant didn't know it. And they gave her 2 years in prison. Because they find one case that supports what they're trying to say, and then they go, it's an epidemic of immigrants voting. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I hear you. So, yeah, I was just wondering, did this have any effect on actual...
I don't know, other than it probably gives... by getting past it, probably gives DHS and Department of Justice more reason and possibly even more money to do those type of things, to go after student groups and accuse them of anti-Semitism and shit like that. Probably also gives weight to colleges that want to disband Free Palestine groups on campus and stuff. But I don't know that it kind of helps those things along. I don't know that it legally does anything.
So yeah, more folks in the comments talking about, well, then how can you be anti-Semitic if Palestinians are also Semitic? Yeah, that's a very good point, and it's why language has become totally twisted in our current system, right? You know, just like Orwell wrote about, peace is war is now peace, and lies are truth, and
being anti-genocide is now genocidal, apparently.
right. So it is a total twisting of words and language to support the system's aims, which at this point is just clearly genocide and global annihilation.
Let's get to this one, which is definitely related.
Yeah, so this is, again, Jewish Currents is a great place to go. I also have been sending this to, because I've been doing quite a bit of work reaching out and being there for people in the Jewish community who are struggling with this topic, who have Zionists in their family, who grew up Zionist, etc. And Jewish Currents is a great place because it is Jewish Currents. So it's of, for, and by Jews, one might say. And of course, they do work. They've been working a lot with folks in Gaza and in Palestine to get those stories out to then share with a predominantly Jewish readership, which I think is, of course, also important. But this article is titled "An Anti-Palestinian Crackdown Across Europe," and it outlines. I mean, it's not, again, I feel like we say this every time. It's not shocking, but it's disgusting.
Right. If you understand how the empire works, none of this is really that shocking, but it is. I continue to be repulsed, disgusted, all those things as they kill so many children, babies, innocent people.
In the past weeks, France, Germany, Hungary, and Austria have all banned protests in solidarity with Palestine, arresting those who defy the order. Meanwhile, British politicians and media have ramped up their attempts to delegitimize such protests, treating Palestinian flags and slogans as threats to public safety. Now, a little side note here, folks might be seeing images of the watermelon online or in Palestinian art and things like that. And that is a very distinct response to what the Israeli government did, which is criminalize flying of the Palestinian flag. So the watermelon has the same colors, and indeed, if you look at like how the Palestinian flag is laid out, the watermelon looks similar. So then it became usage and imagery of the watermelon, and then the Israeli government banned having watermelons.
I missed all this.
Oh, you did?
Stuff.
Oh my god, it's amazing. I posted about it on my Instagram. There was a
watermelon Palestine.
So I posted about it on my Instagram. I don't know if
I don't know how Instagram works.
I know.
I don't get it. I don't.
Let's see if I still have it. Oh no, I don't. I hate that it only lasts.
Yeah, everything about Instagram sucks. Okay, so here is how the watermelon became a symbol of Palestine.
Yeah, so that's the basic gist of it. And so what we're seeing in Europe is a parroting of this kind of crackdown on the ability to even show the Palestinian flag, right? Like the showing of a flag. And this is, by the way, Germany outlaws basically flying the Nazi flag or showing the Nazi symbol. So as of today, unless
you're a Ukrainian soldier that they endorse,
right? The only symbols basically that are outlawed in Germany are the Palestinian flag and the swastika. Let's just take a second to marinate in that. And by the way, in the United States, you can fly swastikas all day long. You can fly the Confederate flag on state houses.
You can send guns and arms to Nazis.
But I'm just talking about the symbols here.
Yeah.
Like there are literally state houses in the United States flying the Confederate flag, but they want to crack down on the flying of the Palestinian flag. So let's just sit with that for a second.
Yeah.
So that's that backstory there. Germany is one of the most rabid countries when it comes to the cracking down on pro-Palestinian marches. Basically, and this all dates back to the Holocaust. The German government has literally said that. They basically said that Germany's one of Germany's Staatsräson, or reason for existence, was ensuring Israel's security as a way of atoning for the crimes of the Holocaust. Well, isn't that, yeah. In 2019, the German parliament passed a resolution explicitly declaring BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement, anti-Semitic. And for the last 2 years, the police have banned Nakba Day. Nakba Day is, of course, the day that the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians began in what is now known as Israel. So they banned Nakba Day protests. And just on October 13th, the Education Ministry recommended banning the keffiyeh, which is the Palestinian scarf, in schools, citing a threat to school peace. Meanwhile, Berlin police have banned almost every rally in solidarity with Gaza since October 7th.
So Germany is threatening or getting ready to ban a piece of clothing that is popular amongst Palestinians, but is also popular amongst many other peoples. Yeah.
Like, I've seen people wearing it that clearly didn't know what it was. They probably just thought it was a cool design, and I don't know where they found it, but it's like...
I remember, this is how far we've come. I remember 15 years ago, maybe it was 10 years ago, Rachel Ray, the cook or chef or whatever she is, that was really popular. Whatever, it was really popular. She did an ad, like a photo ad, where she wore one, and Fox News and everyone was calling it terrorist chic, and made her, retract her advertisement where she wore a scarf. I'm guessing
she didn't know what it was, did she?
No, she probably looked on fashion magazines and saw people wearing it.
Yeah. Berlin police have also been violent. I bet people are shocked that German police can be violent. They, including stamping out candles at vigils for Palestinians killed at Gaza hospitals.
Well, Palestinians that are killed don't. You can't feel for them. You can't have remorse for them. You can't light a candle for them. They don't matter. So.
Then in France, what's this douche canoe's name? He's some authority in France. Oh, the interior minister announced that pro-Palestine protests would be banned outright throughout France, citing a disruption to public order. He also threatened to deport foreign nationals who participate in such actions. But in classic French fashion, the French were like, and have proceeded to host demonstrations even in the face of a heavy police response. In Paris, they were met with water cannons and tear gas. I just like to say that I love the French people. Can I just take a moment to reiterate that? I know I've said it before, but like, I love you guys.
Not the French leaders, but the French people.
No, the French people who are like, oh, you want to ban this protest? I'll tell you what.
Yeah. And then they painted the Palestinian flag on their ass, or maybe painted a watermelon on their ass.
There you go. On October 10th, the British Home Secretary sent a letter to police in England and Wales encouraging them to consider whether waving a Palestinian flag could be intended to glorify acts of terrorism and therefore unlawful.
Yeah, right.
So, and there are, I'm not going to keep quoting from the article because I know you want to move on, but they also point out in the article the problem and the danger of NGOs and organizations that quote unquote track anti-Semitic attacks and attacks against Jews specifically. And I will say that Jewish Currents does a good job of labeling it anti-Jewish specifically, that they're conflating these two things. So like there is actually a rise in violence against Jews, but they're also adding to that list people who shout free Palestine and from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And they're conflating that with social media calls to send, quote, big-nosed Jews to gas chambers. I'm wondering if you could help me figure out the difference between those two comments.
Those two things. Huh. One of them sounds like really someone who endorses a hate crime, and the other one sounds like someone who doesn't want to see a genocide. See the difference?
But again, this is, and I know we've talking about this, but I think it's so important to do so. The danger of conflating Judaism with Zionism. Here we have a clear-cut case of NGOs doing that in their very tracking of the thing that they're trying to say that they don't want to have. Like,
Right.
being against Israel is pro-Jewish and, of course, pro-Semitic in all of the senses, right, of all the Semitic peoples. And we have to make that distinction clear. It is so important, not just for the safety of, I don't know, the world, in case of, this escalating to nuclear war, but also for the safety of Jews. Like, if that's the only thing that you cared about because you're a weird, creepy, non-humane person, then you would still be wrong in supporting Israel, because Israel is a grave threat to Jews worldwide. So, yeah.
But as you can see here, this has not stopped this type of pushback has not stopped students and people from protesting around the world. You just have read some of them in Europe, but university students across the U.S. have walked out of classes in support of Gaza over the past few days at dozens of campuses across North America.
Kids are all right.
The kids are all right. It's at certain campuses. Most of them suck, but still.
Hey, University of Virginia, that's your alma mater.
There we go.
Hey.
UVA doing something. I mean, generally UVA sucks, but
I have no dog in this race or horse in this fight. I don't know.
I think it's
a horse. I don't have a clam in this show.
No. The walkouts took place at university campuses, U.S. and Canada, were organized by Palestinian Youth Movement, which I'm sure is being accused of being anti-Semitic, dissenters and Students for Justice in Palestine. The students demand an end to Israel's siege on Gaza, an end to U.S. funding of Israel, and that their universities divest from weapons corporations which supply the Israeli occupation.
And actually, what's cool, that just reminded me of something. What's cool is how this is being, how this is connecting across movements. Like the lovely folks over at Appalachians Against Pipelines just did an action outside of Elbit Systems, which again is the primary weapons manufacturers for Israel. And Appalachians Against Pipelines, of course, is the organization that is primarily trying to stop the Mountain Valley Pipeline. And people might be like, well, why is that? Why are they conflating those? Well, because those two are very much linked together, right? There's no such thing as a green military. There's no such thing as a green war or a genocide. And, just something as simple as destroying olive groves in Palestine, right? Like these perpetuate climate chaos. And so these things need to be connected, and environmental groups need to take a stand on this. And so it's really awesome to see environmental groups doing that. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to those folks as well.
Moving to a related topic, the numbers of how many have been killed, murdered, maimed, displaced in Gaza. Now, this chart, I think it's a great chart. However, it's already out of date. I mean, these things are out of date basically 10 minutes after they're printed. But already we're above 7,000 Palestinians have been killed. We're above 3,000 children have been killed. I don't know the current numbers of these, so I'll just read the ones they have here. 207 educational facilities hit, 72 attacks on healthcare facilities. 170,000 housing units damaged or destroyed, and over 1 million people have already been internally displaced. Basically, over a third of all those being murdered right now in Gaza are children. And these numbers have been getting out there, and people have been educating themselves about this type of thing. And so our lovely government, including Biden, but I'm going to play a clip from Kirby, the national security spokesperson. They've decided they got to do something about the fact that these numbers are becoming known, and we're starting to hear about thousands and thousands of children murdered by Israel. And so he came out, and they've started saying that these numbers, we don't trust these numbers. Let's see, I think. Well, he said, quote, the Gaza Ministry of Health is just a front for Hamas, a terrorist organization. We can't take their anything coming out of Hamas. However, Human Rights Watch and others have shown that the numbers have been very accurate in the past and now, coming out of the Palestinian Health Ministry. But beyond that, just look, this person did an amazing job of mashing up the two ways John Kirby, press briefing at the White House, the two ways he responds to dead Palestinians versus dead those murdered in Ukraine. And let's watch this 1-minute video.
And being honest about the fact that there have been civilian casualties and that there likely will be more is being honest, because that's what war is. It's brutal, it's ugly, it's messy. I've said that before. The president also said that yesterday. Doesn't mean we have to like it.
It's hard to look at what he's doing in Ukraine, what his forces are doing in Ukraine, and think that any ethical, moral individual could justify that. It's difficult to look at the...
He doesn't even know how to fake cry.
I will say not many men.
Sorry. It's difficult to look at some of the images and imagine that any well-thinking, serious, mature leader would do that.
Who is he talking about?
He's talking about Putin. So basically, when it's Palestinians being murdered by Israel, he says, "Look, this is war. It's ugly. Civilians are going to get hurt. That's just the way it is." That's his response to Palestinians dying. When it has to do with Ukrainians dying, because it's useful to the U.S. proxy war to act like
they're blonde.
Some of them are blonde, but it's useful to the U.S. proxy war to get manufacturer consent to fight Russia. He says it's tough to look at what Putin's doing and the harm that's done to that and how unethical it is. And I don't know how to fake cry. He legit has no idea how to cry. He's trying to, he goes, "Excuse me." And he goes, no one cries like that. He doesn't know what he's talking about, because he's never had a real emotion in his life. He's a sociopath, all right? He's fine with killing children when it's useful to the American empire. And when it's not useful, he has to pretend to be sad about it. And he's like, "Well, how do I pretend to be sad?" And they go, "Well, just you go out there and pretend you're choked up." And he's like, "I don't even know what that means." So he goes,
yeah.
Thoughts?
I'm going to be honest. I wasn't paying attention because I would pay attention to your rant, which I always love. But you know, this guy can go take a long walk off a short bridge, because what I was doing was I was actually, so that graphic that you showed, I then went to their website because I thought it was a really powerful graphic. And
Visualizing Palestine?
Right. And I just sent you some slides. I was wondering if you could pull them up.
See, during my 1-minute rant that I just did there in the clip I played, Eleanor looked all this up, sent me an email, put it all in a new flow chart that she has on Google Docs, and did her taxes.
I also made an apple cake.
And made an apple cake. She's like, "I didn't hear you, but look at all the shit I got done." Okay.
No, I heard you. I just didn't hear him, which is anybody, I mean, am I missing anything?
I feel like I have to play him for you.
No, you don't. I know exactly what he said based on your reaction.
But it was the worst fake crying you've ever seen. Okay. This hasn't shown up yet, maybe?
There we go. So
I have to pull up all these?
Oh, come on.
Jesus.
You just got to click on it. There you go. Okay.
All right.
So visualizing Palestine put together, because I think one of the things that I've been noticing is that people are balking and getting uncomfortable with people using the term genocide to describe what's happening in Palestine right now. And I think this is because, particularly with regards to Jews, people are like, "Oh, well, that's the genocide." And it's like, Jews don't own the term genocide. It is, interestingly enough, a term that is linked to the Holocaust, but it's not about a singular event. And so what visualizing Palestine put together,
or a singular people.
Right. So the term genocide was defined in 1944 by Raphael Lemkin, a Jewish Polish legal scholar. And Lemkin's definition became the basis of the Genocide Convention, which is was adopted by the General Assembly of the United
The
Nations.
Genocide Convention sounds like
Not
a
fun.
bummer of a time.
Yeah. So obviously the fact that it was adopted by the UN suggests that this is a thing that can happen again, right? And that's also why we say never again, because this is a thing that can happen. So the quote here says, more often genocide refers to a coordinated plan. Now, think about what's happening in Palestine right now as I read this. A coordinated plan aimed at destruction of the essential foundations of the life of national groups, so that these groups wither and die like plants that have suffered a blight. The end may be accomplished by the forced disintegration of political and social institutions, of the culture of the people, of their language, their national feelings, and their religion. It may be accomplished by wiping out all basis of personal security, liberty, health, and dignity. When these means fail, the machine gun can always be utilized as a last resort. Genocide is directed against a national group as an entity, and the attack on individuals is only secondary to the annihilation of the group to which they belong. And the other things that I shared here are quotes. This one is an actual banner that has been posted in Israeli cities that reads, "Victory, 0 residents in Gaza."
For those who can't see it and just listen to the podcast, basically it's saying that Israel would define victory as 0 residents in Gaza.
The Israeli Minister of National Security, Ben-Gvir, said the only thing that needs to enter Gaza are hundreds of tons of explosives from the Air Force, not an ounce of humanitarian aid. The Israeli army spokesperson said the emphasis is not on damage and not on accuracy.
The emphasis is on damage and not on accuracy.
Right.
Yeah.
So, with all that in mind, would you not classify this as genocide?
No, it's absolutely, it's inarguable that this is an attempted genocide, which is what genocide is. It is attempting genocide.
And here's the thing, that should make people uncomfortable. It's not that I want people to be comfortable with this and be like, oh yeah, sure, let's call it genocide. I want that to make you uncomfortable. I'm very uncomfortable. We should be uncomfortable with that. If you have an ounce of humanity in you, you should be very uncomfortable with that. But you got to call it what it is. It is an apartheid state. It is genocide. When we use these terms, we can understand what we're actually dealing with. If you call it a war or a conflict, that's just shit that happens, right? Oh, there's a conflict all over the place. There was a conflict in my living room last night when I yelled at my wife. Like that, the language matters. So when we have to use these terms, because again, they should make people uncomfortable. They should snap people out of this dreamland where Israel's benevolent and a democracy. That's bullshit. And you have to use these terms in order to have that understanding. And so, yeah, well done Weaponizing Palestine for creating these. You can definitely go there and use these and post them everywhere, please. I think that is a very powerful and important.
Can you send me the link to your poem?
Well, it's not.
No.
Yeah, actually, I can.
Please. Okay, well, she's doing that. I wanted to answer one person in the chat who says the book, the title is A Problem from Hell by Samantha Power, is worth reading. Hilariously, Samantha Power went on, and maybe this was part of her plan initially. I haven't read the book, but I believe it's mainly about Rwanda, and it talks about the obligation to protect and how the U.S. empire must send our military to go protect people when they're facing genocide. Hilariously, she is now the face of perpetrating crimes against humanity in every way. She was in the Obama administration. She is currently still serving. She's with USAID now, and she runs around the world basically trying to enlarge the U.S. empire, endorse proxy wars, coup other countries. So that may have been her plan all along, or maybe when she was writing the book, she was a better human. But either way, it doesn't matter. The point is, she is a monstrosity of a human being, and yeah, no one should believe a word she says or think that she has anyone's interest at heart other than to continue the U.S. empire.
Didn't you go back in the day? Did you go to talk of hers or something?
Back in the day when I was in college, we mentioned University of Virginia. I had never heard of her, and my girlfriend at the time was a big fan and wanted to take us, wanted me to go with her to the talk, which is free at the university. And it was her speaking about her obligation to protect or whatever. And I remember just thinking, oh, she's cool. She wants to stop genocide. I'd like to stop genocide too. That's awesome. And that's all I remembered. That's all I remembered from it. But yeah, it turns out she's a psychopath.
Wow, you have a lot of Instagram notices.
I don't understand what it does. I don't get it. Hate it on every front.
I really just said that so that you would have a little bit of an Instagram right
You know what? You know what 90% of those notifications are? If I click on them, it says story deleted or whatever. Story has disappeared. Well, thank you. It's great. This would be like if I sent you a piece of mail and it just said, I sent you a letter you didn't see. What? Why? Why do I need that? Why is that there? This is the dumbest shit in the world. Who can have a platform where 80% of the communication is like, man, you should have seen that thing. You should have seen it. Oh, was it good? Oh, what you missed was awesome. What the? Jesus.
Oh my gosh.
By the way, in a minute, we're going to go to rumble.com.
See, this is why I bring it up, because it makes me so happy.
It's weird, though, to segue from the anger you just put me in towards this poem, but
true. Although the anger, it's a different kind of anger, but it is still applicable.
All right. So everybody, you need to recenter yourself at this horrific genocide we're seeing perpetrated by Israel before you read this poem.
Well, let me just, so I'm going to put this up on my website as well, but it's up on my Facebook and it's on my Instagram at Radical Eleanor. But I think this is about, in a sense, and for fellow Jews, but of course it's for anyone. And there are a few terms in here that are Hebrew, but I'm not going to get into that.
No, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, can I get the mic, please? Prepare myself here. Whoa. It's called A Steady Gaze. I can't look, neither can I look away. Were it my child, I would find a way to dig my fingers into temples, hold in place unmoving, and force the eyes of the world to see. And so I look, my hands to temples, whispering Kaddish for the children of the crescent moon, of the star, eyes to sky, feet to roots, for the vast myriad we are. For those who planted olive groves, whose olive branches now belong to broken family trees. Etz Chaim is wilting. I hold my gaze steady, though the rest of me trembles. Can we see for those who hold missiles and see nothing but Nakam, and think they can avenge our history by killing their future? But we are not avenged by this genocide. We are condemned by it. With every bomb you drop in our name, our future is poisoned, soaked with the blood of children. No mikveh will cleanse these moral wounds. I hold my gaze steady, blurred but honest, for all who do not. Grief, unbounded by binary, I weep for it all. And unromantically, I hope. A jagged, relentless hope, the kind that tears down walls. I do not flee from my Judaism in these times. I hold it closer, for it is not the evil we see, it is a salve. It is my people chanting never again. It is my people who demand beauty and peace in our name. For the homes we build wherever we are, connected beyond and before borders, to each other, to ancestors. It is justice, justice we shall pursue. It is the memory of our teachings that we whisper in new ears. It is a steady gaze when others refuse to see.
Beautiful.
So, yeah. I am going to, I'll post that on my website, but it's also again up on Instagram and on my Facebook page.
What's your Instagram? Radical Eleanor.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
We're going to continue this. We're about to get to some more important stories, all coming up. I really hope I get to the story about the U.S. bombing Syria yesterday. But all
it's kind of funny how like all other stories just kind of
I know
fall in the, and it's not like these
Yeah.
stories aren't important. It's just that
there's so many. It's just so much to cover. But every live stream for the past 2 weeks, I'm like, okay, I'll cover Israel and then I'll move on to.
right.
And
But
I
then you never get
never
there.
get it. Rumble.com/leecamp. We have more stories coming up there. Rumble.com/leecamp. It's free to watch there, free to comment. And also my locals page at leecamp.net. Thank you, everyone, a member at leecamp.net, because you can make this show possible. But all right, let's continue there. Rumble.com/leecamp.